Okay, let's just get this out of the way. Forget everything you think you know from spooky campfire stories. When we start talking about creatures like Bigfoot, we're not going to talk about belief. Not at all. We're talking about data. This whole explainer is really about a global pattern, a pattern of reports that's so persistent it forces us to ask a totally different kind of question. Are we just looking at a myth that won't die, or are we looking at a genuine signal buried in all that noise?
So let's just totally reframe this entire conversation right now. The question we should be asking isn't, is Bigfoot real? That's the old way of thinking. The real question is this. What if the thousands upon thousands of reports, and we're talking reports that span centuries and whole continents, what if they're more than just stories? What if they're actually an unresolved data set, a massive collection of information that we're only now beginning to figure out how to read?
And you know what? That's the central mystery here. It's the part that just refuses to go away. These encounters, they aren't just one-off, isolated incidents. They are a persistent feature of human experience. We're talking reported from all over the globe for centuries. So the real question isn't whether you believe one particular story. It's why the stories themselves are so incredibly consistent. Okay, so first things first, we absolutely have to get our heads around the fact that this is not just some quirky North American thing. No way. This is a truly global pattern. I mean, just look at this consistency. You've got Sasquatch in North America, the Yeti in the Himalayas, the Yowie down in Australia, the Almas in Central Asia. Think about it. These are completely independent cultures, often with no historical contact. And yet, the core descriptions they give are practically identical. Tall, walks on two legs, covered in hair, and incredibly reclusive. So you gotta ask yourself, is that just a massive worldwide coincidence? Or is it something more? Is it a meaningful pattern? So for literally centuries, the main form of evidence we had was eyewitness testimony. And let's be honest, mainstream science has historically just dismissed it, labeled it as unreliable, end of story. But that long-held view, it's now being seriously challenged by a powerful new tool, a real game changer, artificial intelligence. And honestly, this is a huge paradigm shift, a totally different way of looking at things. The old scientific view, it treated every single testimony as just an anecdote, a story, something to be thrown out. But the new view, it sees all of it as a potential data set. Because think about it, when you have thousands and thousands of independent accounts, you're not really dealing with stories anymore. You're dealing with statistics. So why the big change of heart? Well, modern psychology actually gives us a few pretty solid reasons. First off, true mass hallucinations, where a big group of people see the exact same thing that isn't there, are incredibly rare, like almost statistically impossible. Second, when thousands of independent witnesses all describe a creature with the same basic body plan, what scientists call its morphology, that becomes really significant. And finally, here's a surprising one. A truly shocking or traumatic event can actually increase the accuracy of your recall. It can sear the details right into your memory. And this is exactly where AI excels. It's what it was built for. It can process thousands upon thousands of these reports without any of the human bias we all have. It starts clustering them by description. So it groups all the mentions of, say, glowing red eyes together, or all the reports of a specific high-pitched scream. Then it maps all that data across geography and time, looking for patterns we'd never see. And this is the crucial part. It can help filter out all the noise, all the obvious hoaxes, to isolate the real, genuine anomalies. Suddenly, out of all that chaos, a structure starts to emerge. All right, so analyzing testimony is one thing, but what about actual physical traces? Well, this is where machine learning is now being used as a kind of powerful digital forensics tool. And this is so important to understand. The AI has no opinion. It doesn't believe in Bigfoot. It couldn't care less. Its only job is to compare data points. It takes a footprint or a photo or a weird sound, and it compares it against these huge libraries of known animals. And if something doesn't fit, if it doesn't match anything in our existing biological catalog, it just flags it. And believe me, the data sets we're talking about are massive. We're talking huge collections of trail camera photos, old historical images, super detailed digital models of footprint casts, and tons of audio files, weird vocalizations that even seasoned wildlife experts listen to and just shake their heads. They can't identify them. This goes so far beyond just stories.
Okay, now this is where the analysis gets really cool. An AI can analyze the biomechanics of how something moves. Its gait, the way it walks, even from a super blurry video. So, for example, it might flag a gait pattern that is just biomechanically wrong for a bear trying to walk on two legs. A bear just can't move that way. Or it could analyze the limb proportions in a photograph and conclude that they just don't match the anatomy of a human being in a costume. It's looking for these subtle but incredibly significant anomalies.
Now, let's be absolutely clear about this. None of this is proof. Not yet, anyway. The goal here isn't to definitively solve the mystery. The goal is to use these incredible new tools to identify genuine anomalies, real data points that our current science can't easily explain away, and to make the case that these anomalies deserve serious, disciplined study, not just automatic dismissal.
All right, this brings us to what is probably the biggest skeptical question of all. I know you're thinking it. In our modern world with satellites everywhere and smartphones in every pocket, could a large animal really stay hidden? Could it actually remain undiscovered? Well, the science of ecology actually has some pretty interesting thoughts on that. And according to ecological modeling, the answer is, surprisingly, yes. It's absolutely possible, but only under a very specific set of conditions. You'd need a species that lives in extremely rugged, remote terrain. It would have to be primarily nocturnal, it would need to have high intelligence, and it would have to be hardwired to avoid humans. And on top of all that, it would have to exist in a very, very low population density. A species with all those traits, yeah, it could definitely evade detection.
And we need to be clear about the biological theory here. We are not talking about a monster. That's not the right word. The scientific term that's used is relic hominid. What that means is a species from the human family tree, like some kind of unknown primate, that we all thought went extinct but might have actually survived in a few isolated pockets of the world. See how that changes things? This frames the entire question not as folklore, but as primatology. So, when you think about it that way, is it really so crazy to think there's a large land mammal out there we just haven't cataloged yet? Well, before you answer, let's just put this into a little bit of historical perspective. History gives us a pretty powerful reality check on this stuff. Think about this. Gorillas, they were dismissed by Western science as just native folklore all the way until 1847. The okapi, it was nothing more than a local legend until 1901. And my personal favorite, the coelacanth, a fish that was supposed to have been extinct for 65 million years, was found alive and well in 1938. The argument that we would have found it by now has a very, very long history of being wrong. And that right there, that is the crucial point. Science doesn't advance by consensus. It doesn't move forward because everyone agrees on what we already know. It moves forward when an anomaly, when some piece of uncomfortable data that doesn't fit, forces us to correct our models of the world. So, where is all this data pointing? Well, there are a few possibilities. It could be a currently unknown primate or hominid. It could be an incredibly intelligent species that has just perfected the art of avoidance. Or, hey, maybe it's a deeply ingrained cultural memory of some extinct megafauna that did once live alongside our ancestors. The goal isn't to force one answer. It's to find the model that best fits all the data we have. Which really just leaves us with one final and kind of provocative thought. After all these centuries of consistent reports from all over the world, reports that are now being reinforced by actual patterns found in the data, maybe, just maybe, the problem isn't a lack of evidence. Maybe the signal has been there the entire time, and maybe we've just been looking for it in all the wrong ways.